Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Lama Amer. I am the Executive Director of Build Palestine, and I will be introducing the webinar today. I would like to start with a few housekeeping items. Our discussion will be in English, and there is a live translation to Arabic, which you can access from the bottom inside, which is, I think, the globe sign. الجلسة هاي رح تكون باللغة الإنجليزية، فإذا بتحتاجوا للترجمة العربية بإمكانكم تتوجهوا لإشارة الكرة الأرضية تحت لتختاروا الشانل اللغة العربية. We have more than 240 people registered for the webinar today, so please go ahead and share where you're joining us from in the chat. We would like to see the diversity. Today's webinar is part of Build Palestine's ongoing series, which is called Mobilizing for Gaza. Our objectives for these sessions are, first, to create a sense of community and engage in crucial discussions that enhance our efforts to mobilize for Gaza. And secondly, to spotlight the impactful work of organizers, leaders, social entrepreneurs, and initiatives that are making significant difference in Palestine today. As you may know already, this webinar was initially scheduled for last Wednesday, but we had to postpone it due to the tragic escalations that occurred on that day. I understand how challenging it is to reimagine in these times when it feels like the world around us is collapsing. Reimagining education is even more difficult when schools are being bombed and innocent lives are being lost daily in the most horrific ways. We all struggle to accept the reality we're living in right now, but there is a hadith that I personally have been, it's been my source of strength in these days, which says, إذا قامت الساعة وفي أحدكم فسيلة فليغرسها. Sayyidina Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam says, if the final hour comes while you have a sprout in your hands and it is possible to plant it before the hour comes, you should plant it. And I really hope that this hadith brings you some inspiration as well. This session is an hour and a half long and will be recorded and shared with everyone who has registered. There will also be a recap email after this session with relevant resources and links shared. I know many of you have been eagerly anticipating this webinar to discuss such an important topic. Many of you have already launched education initiatives for Gaza or are considering to do so. So I encourage you to engage in the chat, tell us about your work, share your insights, and ask questions you may have through the Q&A section. Before I officially begin, I want you to invite you into a moment of silence for the people of Gaza and all our martyrs who have lost their lives. Thank you. Now, allow me to introduce our moderator and speakers for today. Our moderator, Suha AbdAlRahim, who graciously agreed to moderate this very challenging webinar, I know. Suha is the Country Director of Jordan and Palestine at Alfanar, a leading venture philanthropy association in the region that invests in high growth potential social enterprises addressing social and environmental challenges, including education. Alfanar is a primary partner of Build Palestine, and Suha is deeply passionate about educating children and exploring innovative ways to disrupt traditional education approaches. And she believes in the role of social enterprises that can play to achieve such disruptions. Our first speaker is Reem the founder and executive director of Nawa for Culture and Arts Association in Gaza, a prominent culture center focusing on non-formal education and psychosocial support, and which has impacted the lives of thousands of kids in Gaza. Reem has survived 7 months of the genocide before moving to Egypt. We are very grateful that she has agreed to join us today to share her insights from the ground. Our second speaker is Dr. Riyam Kafri, the education lead at AlNayzak organization, one of Palestine's most impactful organizations in education and science that was founded in Jerusalem in 2003. Riyam has extensive experience in curriculum development, pedagogy, and training within formal and non-formal education sectors. She is passionate about leveraging education and writing as transformative tools for community development and knowledge sharing. And finally, we have Nayla Fahed, who's joining from Lebanon, the founder of the Lebanese Alternative Learning, LAL, and the e-learning platform Tabshura. The Lebanese crisis and the influx of the Syrian refugee further motivated her to develop innovative educational solutions to support vulnerable children. In 2016, Nayla has left her teaching position at St. Joseph University to fully dedicate herself to LAL. Despite ongoing challenges in Lebanon, LAL continues to expand its initiatives within the mission to provide equitable educational opportunities for all children in Lebanon. After the beginning of the genocide in Gaza, Nayla has been actively working to bring LAL solutions to Palestine. We are excited to have such an esteemed panel who have been all women, by coincidence, with us today, and we look forward to their valuable contributions. Thank you, and over to you, Suha.
Lovely. Thank you, Lema. I will start the conversation by saying I apologize for my voice. This is not my natural voice. I am losing my voice, but thankfully I don't have to speak very much during this webinar. I do want to echo what Lema has said. This webinar has definitely not been the easiest, but has been the most invigorating webinar to plan for, especially with these incredible women who are women first, educators second, and who are really driving incredible change in Palestine, Lebanon, and beyond. So without further ado, so that I do less talking and more listening, I wanted to start the conversation with a very simple question, and it's a question that we've been having many discussions on, which is, why is education important during times of genocide and war? We're very careful with the language that we want to use during this webinar. It's clear to see that what's happening in Palestine is a genocide, and it's clear to see that what is being threatened in Lebanon will be a war. So I would love to start by asking Reem, from your perspective and your experience, having been the one in the panel that is from Gaza, can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you've done and why you believe that education is important in times of genocide?
Thank you, Suha. Before I start, I would like to start by making a heart prayer for all the people of Gaza, asking for peace and asking for lots and lots of healing for everyone that is still in Gaza. And secondly, I would like to start with your second question. Why is education important in genocide? We used to say before the world of 7th of October that education is the only and the last bullet that we Palestinians have at hand. And it's extremely of importance for all of us that to know that education builds people. And when we have strong people, well-educated people, it means that I can be of control in my future. I can be of control in everything that is related to me. I can make decisions for myself. And for this, that's why it is very important to keep education as a priority for all of us and for every times, either during the context of emergencies or in any other context. And Palestinians have shown so much efforts, have done so much efforts to keep that line very, very high. And when we build people, it means that I have to focus on their skills and I have to focus on their psychosocial part of this of their lives, and that's why it is important to keep an eye on both sides. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reem. Riyam, from your perspective, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Suha. And I think that this is a question that I personally struggled with at the onset of the genocide. I just couldn't imagine that I would have to speak to children or parents about education when they're really fighting for their own life every minute. But what I learned from our work at AlNayzak on the ground in Gaza is that the people of Gaza are really are hungry for education, even in under genocide and under fire, and that for them this is the only way out. And I've heard parents tell us that they wanted their children to have a real shot at the future, which means that there's still hope. And I think that this is incredible to be able to hold hope even in the darkest of moments. But so that on a personal level, but on a very educational and scientific perspective, providing any form of education for children in times of trauma, in times of genocide, in times of war is really important because we already know the effects of trauma on the human brain and on child development. And the fact that these children lose all sense of structure in their life. They no longer have the opportunity to go to school, which, for anyone looking on the outside in, it's, children must be excited not to go to school. No, they're not. Schools provide structure, routine. They are the social fabric that holds these children together. They have friends they want to see. They have teachers that they like to talk to, and all of this is lost. So this is a huge loss for them. So on an emotional level, they're affected, but also on a cognitive level, there are serious effects on children's cognition and cognitive abilities when they are taken away out of the educational system. And we saw this on a very, very small scale during COVID in Palestine, and we saw the profound effects that COVID had on children who were not in school. We're not comparing COVID to the genocide, but we're just saying that the disconnection in education does affect children. So if you take that disconnection and compound it with continuous bombing, continuous loss of family, and many children have lost their limbs, have lost their friends, have lost their mothers and fathers. And so this continued vicious cycle of violence against children, I think that you see that the faster you can get them learning, the faster you can get them integrated and engaged in a safe place, regardless of what safe really means at this point. It's important for them in order to be able to recover, because genocide will end. It has to end. We have to hold that hope and that determination that this cannot continue and should not continue. So at some point, we need to think about children and how they will heal, what tools will they need. So this is something that I struggled with, but now I'm more convicted that we should be offering this kind of support for children.
Great, thank you so much, Riyam. That's super clear. Nayla, from your perspective, and having done such a shift from, being an educator to developing LAL and lots of digital solutions, why do you believe that education is important in times of war or reacting to war?
When we had our first conversation, I had a moment where I felt useless. I went out and was wondering about priorities, and especially after hearing Reem describing what is happening, and I said, in front of such a horrible genocide, what to say about education in front of other priorities. But after this despair moment, I woke up the second day and strongly believing again that education is a human right as important as food and shelter, because it's about the future, it's about the day after. And hopefully there will be a day after. There is always a day after. And we don't want to lose a generation of kids who would have lost the ability of learning how to learn. And so I came back the second day with a strong belief that education is important. And we should be, if we are educators and we cannot help in somewhere else, we should be thinking, reimagining solutions for education.
Great, it's great. This kind of brings us smoothly, and I could kind of come back to you, Nayla, so that we can start with you again. But with Lal and with Tabshura, what were the reasons why you started in this field? What were your motivators to kickstart Lal and then to develop Tabshura, which is a digital platform that provides access to formal education? Can you talk us through that?
So I would say at the beginning by accident. We started the idea of creating a digital platform following an experience we had with children that needed education. But mostly it was about watching the growing bridge between people, the have and have-nots. The people who have access to a high quality education, or at least an education that resembles the 21st century, and others who were left behind, sometimes with education, but with education that give us satisfaction, like, yes, we're doing something, but what we're doing is really a minimum. And this was even more striking to me when it comes to underserved area and refugees, where there are initiatives, but it's also like, okay, we are doing something. We are giving, a word I hate is accelerated learning program. What is accelerated in learning? It's not accelerated. We should be prioritizing things we want to develop through education. We should prioritize taking the agency and teaching the child how to take agency on his own learning, how to learn, how to ask the good questions, how to find the good information. And this disparity between the have and have-nots of education was, I think, the primary motivation. We should create a platform. So it is kind of formal education, but not really within the approach we are adopting. And this platform should not be a minimum. We should really focus on the quality of what we want to give, and believing that every child can develop all kinds of skills.
Amazing, amazing. Reem, I know that we don't really want to go and have discussions about the 7th of October, but we can't really shy away from the accomplishments that you and your team through Nawa have driven in Gaza. Can you maybe share with the group and with everybody on the webinar a little bit more about your journey in Gaza and why it kind of propelled you to start Nawa? Yeah, I'll leave it there.
It's a long journey, and it's so strange what is happening in Gaza for me. It's still, I can't eat it. I can't understand it. Yet I have spent all my career in providing so many interventions within the education field in Gaza. I was the director of Qattan Center for the Child until one day I established that center, and we have made so many accomplishments with the children. Later, I decided to escape for 2 years, trying to figure out and move or run away from the dust from Gaza, which have education in one hand and have the psychosocial support, continuous need of children at the other hand. And I thought maybe it's not clever to continue just focusing. You have to run away a little bit out of it. I escaped for 2 years outside and then came back to Gaza with a dream to open or reimagine education in Deir al-Balah, which is a small town in the mid of the Gaza Strip. I'm sure everyone is hearing the name through the news these days. And this is where I established Nawa. Also, I was awarded the National Order of Merit for my experiences and education with the children in a year ahead. And I thought this would be a good challenge start to put all the values, to put all the principles that I believed, and to put it on practice on my own, far away from any control of donor or any other similar thing. I wanted to have a pure local experience that focuses on, if we provided a clean and organized environment for the people, then I am sure that they will nourish, they will do their best to make the best possible standard ever. And this was the start of Nawa for Culture and Arts 2014. Unfortunately, the Israelis didn't give me enough time. 2 years after establishing of Nawa, again, another Israeli attack took place in Gaza. And just a couple of 2 weeks after opening Nawa, I had to suddenly try to provide any psychosocial support for the children, which were hundreds. So I didn't need to do any kind of marketing, even for the children to come and benefit from our own support or potential services. And last April, we should be celebrating our first 10 years. So unfortunately, this was the different celebration, but anyway, where did we end? 2000 until 7th of October, we had 5 cultural centers in Deir el-Balah, started with $0 budget. And now we had 5 cultural centers. One of them is an amazing monastery called St. George's Monastery, which is located in Deir el-Balah, which in English means the Monastery of Palm Trees, which is originally a Christian city where my family goes into the root of that area. So my roots is Christian from St. George town, which is now called Deir el-Balah. And we had that monastery, which is more than 1,400 years old. And we renovated that monastery to become a beautiful children library for the very, very poor neighborhood. Deir el-Balah is also have the highest poverty rate all over Palestine. And it's amazing because this was the only child library in town. We also succeeded to open Al-Hikayat kindergartens, which also was the starting point even before Nawa. When I turned 40, I took every penny that I have at the bank account and created that kindergarten, which was a nice contribution for my community. Later, it was part of the Nawa, and we serve around 140 children in that kindergarten, and we linked what we do to several psychosocial support. We succeeded to collect 120 story based on a true collection of stories that carries values for children, that carries human rights, that carries inclusion, that carries respect for women, gender equity, and every possible value which we focus on. And these are the only source that we use for storytelling within that kindergarten. We also linked that kindergarten to all to all the local environment and all local festivals. And we try to make a good education where we engage parents through family literacy groups and parents club, where they can come and become part of all the education that is happening with the children. In addition to that, we had, of course, because Gaza is living under continuous trauma and several Israeli attacks all the time. So we had a Zaytuna Center, which means olive tree center, which is also focusing on education and psychosocial support together. When we started thinking of psychosocial support as a kind of reaction to the Israeli attacks, later, just a few times later, we discovered that this is nonsense, because you really can't separate education from psychosocial support. So we just finished with preparing a full program that has both psychosocial support and education in one plate that we provide for the children. And it's amazing. The impact of these efforts were really amazing on children. Also, we had a playground, Al-Bayyara playground, which is focusing on environmental concepts in addition to psychosocial support and education for children and all surrounding schools. And lastly, we had a hub for the children, for the young people, where we engage them in learning the 21st century skills, where we provide lots and lots and lots of life skills, interpersonal skills, digital literacy, and so many other similar activities and interventions for the young people in Deir el-Balah. This went perfectly. I mean, every day we wake up with lots of hopes and lots of courage and lots of passion towards we do the change. We are local people from Deir el-Balah, and we are driving the change in our community. We were of control, and we used to say that nothing stops us. And that's what we and the Nawa team did all the time. Until the 7th of October occurred, we're now total different world. And Now all our beautiful centers are full with displaced people from all over Gaza. The families, children, parents are full of inside the Nawa center. We're hosting them within Nawa center. And also, unfortunately, everything has stopped. Gaza collapse. I'm sure everyone is watching this online genocide, which is very strange for me as Gazan Palestinian living in Gaza. I can't understand this online genocide. Really, my brain doesn't eat it, cannot accept it, but this is true. Everyone is watching what is happening, and it seems that it's fine. On the other hand, everything else have changed. Before, we used to drive our work through a strategic plan, which focuses on non-formal education and on also providing so much capacity building for the educators and parents, because we wanted them to be engaged in a holistic approach for the children, as we all know as educators. But now everything have changed. I have a strategic plan that does not fit with the whole, with 7th of October world. Contexts are totally different, destruction everywhere. Schools exist. People are also different, and this is the most scary part. And when if I have one invitation for everyone, all educators around the world, when you think of education for Gaza, please don't think of 1 + 1 = 2. Please don't think of educational materials. It's important. I'm not saying this is not, but please pay more attention to building humans again, because within the 7th world, people have, or the international community have revealed its faces, and this made lots and lots and lots of disbelieving in this world, and also of losing faith. Before, there was some pride, we believed the SDG 2030, where no one left behind. Well, all Gaza is left behind. I mean, everything is totally different to all these workshops and seminars and lots and millions of dollars were spent to teach us Palestinians how to become an active people within the international community. To me, this is all nonsense. It has no meaning at all at this stage. And that's why I think, please focus on people, focus on their need for psychosocial support, focus on their needs for different. Most of the people left their houses. Most of the people have lost their houses, have lost their beloved ones, have lost everything. And again, the most important part is to see all the values of this whole world is collapsing, to see the hypocrisy on this world is really, 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 sorry for my language, disgusting.
Thank you, Reem. It's always as much as your words are honest, truthful, they're also quite they kind of hurt, and I'm sure that people can feel the same, because I think that there's been so much happening in Palestine, particularly in Gaza, that has really disrupted the way that we view international support in the international world in general. But I think you've shared so many critical points that really do show us some hope in the fact that there are options and there are approaches that we can take to reinvigorate the landscape, the social landscape, the educational landscape, whether it be through what Nayla spoke to, where you kind of disrupt the ecosystem with digital solutions, or you go back to basics and you re-innovate or restructure key areas within Gaza so that they can be, I'm sad to say, safe, quote unquote safe. Language is so difficult at this precise moment in time that, we just need to do a little bit better in how we view the next steps, to make sure that we keep children safe and that we keep their parents safe and we keep the community safe in general. And I think this kind of takes me to Riyam and the work that AlNayzak is leading in Palestine throughout. And again, I'm really careful. I think we've got, not me, people have got into a habit where they differentiate Gaza as being a sole entity outside of Palestine, which is incredibly dangerous. But I know that AlNayzak is leading on all fronts of ground across Palestine, including Gaza and the West Bank. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the approaches that you're taking in Palestine to kind of mitigate the impact of disruption due to the occupation and this escalating violence. And just to kind of hear a bit more about the work that AlNayzak is planning for their interventions in Gaza, and before then just general in Palestine.
Thank you, Suha. AlNayzak works throughout Palestine and has been present in Gaza since its inception, and accumulated 20 years plus of experience in the field of education, both formal and non-formal, with a focus on non-formal for a while, but we're slowly moving into the formal educational realm right now. As a Jerusalemite organization, obviously we started in Jerusalem. We were started by Engineer Arif Husseini, who's a Jerusalemite himself and wanted to serve his immediate community with a very big and worldly vision. For us, we work under 3 different pillars. AlNayzak works under science and society because ultimately we're a bunch of scientists, and you can think of us as a bunch of engineers and scientists who just want everyone else to be excited about producing scientific knowledge and understanding the scientific method on the most simple, this is the most simple way to put it. So we have a pillar where science and society, and we will look at non-formal education of science, and the social setting of scientific education through our interactive science center, exhibitions, festivals, and we've done that throughout. So West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, wherever we have access to, we've worked. And the second pillar is innovation in education, and this is more formal. We're focused on formal education. We look at how we can reimagine education. And so from day one, AlNayzak has put it into its mandate to really rethink what education should look like, and what we want it to look like in Palestine in particular. And then the third one is innovative economy, where we do entrepreneurship and incubators, and we kind of foster the next generation of entrepreneurs and within Palestine. So these are the 3 pillars that we've been working on. And in Gaza, we currently, if we want to talk about the current situation, we have partnered with UNICEF to provide education for grades 4, 5, and 6. And we also have, we will be launching another project with the PIF, Palestinian Investment Fund, for grades 7, 8, and 9. And the idea behind this, and this is something that we thought of and talked about, is that there's an entire academic year that has gone by, and these children have not gotten an education. Now the question is it really a priority or not? Is something that we struggled with as well, and we thought about, and we had conversations, honest, very brutal conversations of, do I want to be providing education when I could be, providing food, for example? And ultimately, the way we worked is we provided feedback from the people on the ground that they were really interested in having their children engage in some kind of learning. And I don't think that you can separate education. I agree with Reem that I don't think you separate education from psychosocial support or social emotional learning or whatever buzzwords you want to call it, but I think that those life skills and this ability to offer that kind of support can come in the form of an educational experience of some sort. So you can teach all kinds of learning experiences, or you can have students engage in all kinds of learning experiences and still be providing them the opportunity to debrief, to talk, to express themselves, and to also rebuild their social fabric. One of the bigger challenges in post the genocide is really rebuilding the social fabric of Palestine in general and of Gaza in specific, because as many families are off the record now and have been wiped off, there's really there are holes in that fabric that we're so closely that's so closely knit. Palestine is a small town. It's it's a small country with a small town feel. Everybody knows everyone, and all of us are connected. So as more people are being killed brutally every day, we are losing most of us are experiencing some kind of loss at some level. So that's our initiative on the ground. We're also partnering with Top Shura, and we're really excited to provide digital solutions all, you know, for learning, and not just in Gaza, throughout, because it would be a mistake to only consider that learning has stopped in Gaza only. In the West Bank, we've had a very disrupted year. In places like Tulkarem and Jenin and Nablus, schools have gone on for days without being in session. Children have difficulty accessing their schools. We've had children killed in regular Israeli incursions in the West Bank as well. So in general, I think that AlNayzak believes that on a very emergency level and urgent level, we respond to the needs that are on the ground in Gaza. But at the moment, what we are facing really is the challenge of, what do we do from here? Do we go back to what we were? And are we happy with what we were in terms of education? I think many of us would say no. We think we need to move forward, and this is a conversation we normally have. Is that what's the right answer? What does it look like to learn in Palestine? And how do you make sure that learning isn't only academic, but it is also skill-based and kind of rebuilds humans and produces humans that are able to face the challenges that they are going to face in the future?
Great. There's a lot of questions, obviously, that I have, but this was great. I just want to go to Nayla. Just quickly, my question is quite simple. Why did you decide to, collaborate and want to scale your solution, which is Tabshura, to Palestine? What do you feel your impact is going to be, and how do you believe that Tabshura could mitigate the learning losses that we are experiencing through the digital platform?
And so the way we approach digital in Lebanon was focusing on the flexibility of a digital program. So digital can be used anytime, anywhere, and it can be helpful in many ways. It can be helpful to fill gaps, accumulated gaps, prior gaps. It can be reinforcement, can be used by teachers, can be used by parents. So focusing on this flexibility and designing our program with in mind this flexibility. The first reaction we had, okay, you are designing digital program and you have no internet, because our internet is very bad in Lebanon. And so the second axe we focused in was working on providing offline solutions. So we have at least 2 offline solutions and working on a third one. We have a micro server. It's called Tabshura in a Box. We have an offline app, and anyone can use the offline app. All of our programs are completely free to access. And so the challenge make us solve the internet issue. Then we had another issue. Okay, children does not have devices. This is where we turned our website, our platform, our digital learning platform into an app that is used on phones and allow the offline, the download of content to be used offline on phone. So this is our first pillar, is to innovate in digital program and to innovate in outreach and offline solutions. The second pillar was, okay, now we have created this program, we like it, but how to tell about how to outreach, how to scale it, how to tell people about it. And this is where we have developed a second pillar that is operationalization. I hate this word. This is where my French accent will come. And so the idea is we developed another initiative called AlMudarris for educators. And by educators, we mean teachers, but also parents, the cousin who is teaching his nephew, the cousin who is teaching his younger cousin. Yes, I confused them. And so the idea was to support educators with tools to use also digital education and to create a capacity building model, focusing on what Reem was saying. And I think it's very important: flexibility, ownership. We should not, we do not want, for instance, we do not want to give Palestine our model. We want to share with them a model they can adapt and they can redesign if they need to redesign it. We want to share our know-how, our experience of digital, of limitation, the content we have, but with the full possibility of adapting this content to making it their own. And I think Reem talked about how much they were local doing local content. And this is a fight we always have. We want local to do local content. We don't want imported solution that maybe are beautiful, but have no sustainability. And so we want to build our own platform, and we don't want people to stop us from being innovative, stop us to be creative. And I know that with Build Palestine, this is a fight we have against big donors or agency who forces solutions on us because they have the power and the money, and money and power being the same. So when the 7th of October, after the 7th of October happened, when time went by and we saw what's happening and we were wondering what to do, one of the idea was sharing Tabshura with Palestine, but not as I said, not as a program, but as a content we can work together, we can co-create together, we can transfer our know-how. And this is where we met the amazing AlNayzak team. And we are very much eager to start working on this transfer of know-how and content.
Amazing. Lovely. That was great. I seem to be yo-yoing between things, and I know I am yo-yoing for a reason. And the reason is I'm trying to kind of provide coverage to everybody that has joined the discussion today on the simplicity of education to the more cutting edge part of education that we can kind of utilize. And you could make it as simple as, and I'm going to ask Riyam to kind of give us this example, because it's an example that makes me very excited about how Palestinians are so innovative in overcoming conflict and overcoming all these barriers that constantly are building in order to access education. And then from Riyam's example, I'm going to go back to Reem and kind of really kind of try to ground us back in Gaza. So Riyam, you know the example I want you to share. So I'll ask you to share, and then I'll go to Reem to kind of tackle some more of the more targeted efforts that we need to make in Gaza.
So I think that finding an innovative solution, because this is not the first time that the Israeli occupation gets in the way of the educational journey of children in Palestine. And we saw this in the first Intifada in 1987, when the schools were closed, forcefully closed. We were not allowed to go to school because the Israeli occupation closed the schools. And at the time, this is pre-Oslo, so for those of you who are young, I know it's a very, weird, like it's almost like a prehistoric era, but at that time there was no Palestinian Authority. There was active military presence in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, and in Gaza, and the educational system was controlled by the Israeli Ministry of Education at the time. So the schools, the public schools that you see now, were controlled by the Israelis at the time. So the first response to the fact that the people had organized an intifada, an uprising, is to shut down schools. And I think that we need to understand that when you stop generations from studying, from learning, you are essentially really stunting the growth of a nation, the thought, the intellect, and the achievement and productivity. So this has always been a tool that was used by the Israeli occupation. But what Palestinians did is they found a solution. because we are a small knit, close-knit community, they formed small neighborhood schools where the neighbor who's really good in math would teach the math lessons, and as children in that street would be grouped into groups, not sometimes by grade level if possible, sometimes 2 grades at a time, so grades 3 and 4 together, maybe 1 and 2 together, and the children received some kind of education. We had the books. We had a very eager parents and determined parents to make sure that we were studying. And this happens throughout the West Bank, in cities, in villages, in refugee camps. This was not something that only a certain sector or a certain class, implemented, but it was rather a national movement, a very popular movement. And we used to call them in Arabic المدارس الشعبية, مدارس الحارات الشعبية. يعني إحنا كنا بالحارة, and then in the building that I was in, we had my mother, who was an Arabic language teacher, who taught all of us Arabic, and then my father, who was really good in math. He was a PhD in electrical engineering, and he taught all of us math and physics for those who were older. So this is how it went, and it produced a generation who, although was not in formal education, has found a non-formal, innovative solution. And this was not only for primary education or secondary education, but rather also it went on above and beyond that, because universities were closed as well. So university professors would congregate in small apartments and hold lessons against the will of Israeli occupation. And you could get arrested for this. And there are many professors who were arrested for it. So this is something that Palestinians have done. If there is anything that we've done, is that we've persevered and found solutions to continue education. And it was no wonder that during, for a very, very long time, Palestinians were the most highly educated country within the Arab world, and has produced many thinkers and many scientists and many writers. We are the land of Edward Said at the end of the day, and we produced Edward Said to the world, and we've produced also, many other thinkers along the way. And so this is important to remember, because in the darkest moment where genocide is happening, we feel desperate. We feel like we cannot do anything. We feel like we're under attack from every single direction. But the fact that AlNayzak can go on the ground and teach in tents, even though in some cases we had very limited number of papers, for example, and number of pens and pencils. The fact that we can do that, this stems way, this is really deeply rooted way back in the 1980s, when people decided that they're not going to have their children not learn, and they needed them to learn, because education has always been a pillar of the Palestinian society.
Amazing. It's always, I hear it every time, and it's like the first time, so the amount of excitement I have listening to it is quite phenomenal. Thank you again for sharing. And really, what we're trying to share with everybody on the call today is that innovation is not just about technology. Innovation is about the approach that you take to enable a movement to continue to move, and to enable access to education in a very meaningful way. And I want to go back to Reem, because although Reem has now left Gaza, Reem is very much embedded in Gaza through the centers that she has established with her team through Nawa. Reem has also, as we all know, the attacks against Gaza are not unique. They happen periodically across every 2 to 4 years. So Reem has lived many incursions of elevated violence. And I wonder if, Reem, you can share with everybody, if you can share with the listeners, and if you can share with us, what interventions you have taken previously through Nawa to safeguard the psychosocial balance, or to provide psychosocial support to children in Gaza when they've witnessed so much hardship. And then it's a very difficult question to ask you now, and I'm sorry, and you can skip it, but through the centers that you currently have now in Gaza that are home to many displaced individuals and communities, what do you feel could be some interventions that could be taken in the short term to alleviate some of that psychological distress that children and their families are going through? You're on mute.
Thank you, Suha. I believe I was invited because I have some experience in education, but I think the first reason why I'm here is because I'm an educator from Gaza. And for this, please just give me some space just to try to do a little bit of what it means to be in Gaza during this genocide. First, people outside Gaza have to understand that whatever words are used to describe the hell that the Gaza people are living in, it's impossible. The dictionary is really helpless when you describe what does it mean to take your sons away, your family away, and trying to move from here to there without any space, without anything, and to have all these online genocide things that we've watched on social media or on TV channels, and feeling helpless all the time. This morning, I was just having several phone calls with all my family, my friends in Deir al-Balah, trying to calm down a little bit, because we don't know if they're going to invade or not. And this is extremely scary. And this is the only thing that my mind is busy with, is trying just to provide prayer, just to protect them, just to be safe, just to be out of this. And this is not easy when you are in a place where you just keep having a phone call with a message that you lost this or that friend or whatever, Allah yab'ad shar. So this is one part that people have to understand. The people of Gaza are just waiting to hear this and that when we know what does this mean. On the other hand, yes, I lived in Gaza all my life and I loved Gaza. I love Gaza so much. It's one of the most beautiful places. I chose to be in Gaza. I chose to do something in Gaza. Gaza people are really beautiful, very generous. They open their hearts before their houses for every stranger. And it's always was a great to be there and to try to do something for that area. It's so much rich and it has so much beautiful things. Unfortunately, this happened to Gaza. Every day I wake up thinking that this could be a nightmare, and I just shake my head saying, maybe I will wake up, but unfortunately it doesn't stop. What I want to say is that before this genocide, yes, we went through different Israeli attacks and continuous. And I will show you the difference in both situations. When we used to have this, we are, in a way, became used to it. It's not good. It's not right to have these Israeli attacks. But in a way, we know that we don't have an option but to continue. So that's what we do. But this time is so much different, because at the end of every Israeli attack, we used to have a plan for psychosocial support, and then we go for education, digital, etc., all the life. This time, even the psychosocial support is not enough. People have to understand this, because there is also a priority, even number one, that arises during this genocide, which the people have lost their belief in this world. It's totally different. Before, as an NGO or as an individual, we used to come and to have the people and say, I want to help you. Now, for me, I don't want this. This is not right, because what I want is to understand, what did you do to help me? People are running from one place to another for 10 months, and nothing, no one on earth is doing anything to stop this. And this is continuous. And I don't know, and my family don't know for how long. How can people go? They will never, we know this. No one of us, no one of Gaza who witnessed this genocide will be the same as before. And when we say that, this means that I need all the effort to again believe. I will just tell you one little example. After each Israeli attack before, we used to call each other, this happened to me, and this happened to me, and this happened to me. Now people do not talk, even to their beloved ones. We don't, in a way, the ability to communicate is even getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And it's like nobody is there and I'm feeling alone. Ya wahdak. This is what we feel every Gaza is doing, is on their own. I talked today morning with friends and they all said, we're just waiting for their death. And this is, imagine, those are the very close people to every one of us. Now, for me, before this, so now that's again, I'm insisting and putting this as a priority. Please work on people before working on any other related 6th of October scenario. This was a word for Gaza. It has ended. Now there should be another and different standard and start. So again, when you work, you have to show so much. The voice of Gaza must be heard a little bit higher, and they are the ones who are going to decide what their priorities are. And the second, before this genocide took place, we succeeded to create a local program in collaboration with Waldorf Steiner in Germany, but all voluntary, which means I only learned their techniques in working with children, which we tested in Gaza. And they were amazing because the techniques does not have anything but a method just to attract children. And what we use the method and we link it to the Palestinian heritage in Deir al-Balah area. So, and I'll give some examples. So this program depends on 3 areas, actually 4. One of them is healing storytelling. One of them is healing arts, and then healing physical movements, and happiness heals, which means we're talking about community and so much fun within part of the activities. And number 5, which we added to that, is community self-help program. I will start with number 5. With the community self-help program, the most sad thing is that any traumatized people, after the trauma, they feel so much helpless, which means they cannot do the simplest thing to themselves, and they would be expecting others to do it for them. And this is the scary part, which we don't want to see in our community. And that's why we created this program, trying to engage children and young people in doing things for the others. It could be something simple like cleaning the streets, like planting olive trees, like going to elder house and do some activities in there and be engaged in the day-to-day life activities, and so many similar activities where people took the initiative to decide a problem within their community and then suggest a solution and then implement the solution. Number 4 would be Happiness Heals, where we do lots of recreational activities for the children and their parents. And amazingly, you can't imagine the involvement of the parents, and you can't imagine how released they are themselves, not as a children. To me, that was a total surprise because we were targeting children. But then in a way, we saw mothers being engaged and having expressed so much, not interest, but committed to all these sessions, because this, again, we do not give enough attention to the mother's role in the family. It's like the women are taking every responsibility related to this genocide or to that crime or to that Israeli attack or whatever. Mother is always carrying everyone, but so much little efforts are done to her to support her or to empower her to survive again. So this was one important role. Then we're talking about healing storytelling, which we again focus on stories that empower children's ability to rethink again of their abilities and try to wake up their internal power to get over problems ahead. And again, we had a special program for 4 years where we're trying to collect stories of meaning, which means these are valuable stories you can hear instead of this and that, sorry, rubbish stories where you can find them everywhere. And also the art, healing art, which also focuses on trying to linkage the brain, the hand, and the eye together. After the F-16 comes and bomb in Gaza, even if the whole war or the whole genocide is finished, the F-16 does not leave our minds. It's still there. For me, after 4 months leaving Gaza, it is still here. At every minute, if I put a cup of tea, then I think immediately, maybe there will be a bombing and this will be demolished. At every single minute, it is with you, it's within your with every part of you. So what we do is trying to do these type of healing arts, which we try to get the 3 things together, which every day focuses on child ability to concentrate and improve it until they reach a good state, I hope. The last would be the physical movement, which again, doing the same part, trying to engage the children in civic and so much physical activities, which helps the children again to focus and concentrate. One important part of this is that we try to link everything to the local culture of Deir al-Balah, for example. This is where we are located. So we collected all songs from old women who lives, and luckily I am very proud that we did this. I'm very relaxed that we even did this. We collected hundreds of songs from old women in Deir al-Balah, and some of these songs are more than 100 years old. And we succeeded to produce 2 musical albums. One is called Liwan, and the other The other, you will find the two musical albums on Nawa for Culture and Art YouTube, and they are only collected from old women, and they were amazingly produced again by Nawa. And not only that, but we're using these songs within the kindergarten education. So children are learning all these food from their grandmothers again within their day-to-day activities as normal part of doing that. If you think of us Palestinians linking our education to the heritage, I think you will find it as a very weak part. We did not invest enough into that area, and that makes me sometimes laugh when I see, for example, the embroidery of the Palestinian is extremely expensive, where only specific people can afford buying something like this. So our heritage is extremely expensive, which is again, that put us in the question, why did we reach this point? Heritage should be at the hand of everyone's in the community. It should not be only for a specific group of people who have money in a way. And that is one thing. So reproducing the songs. Not only that, but we engage the children and the young people also in collecting all the old photos from the neighborhood, from Deir al-Balah. And I'm very happy to, we started digitalizing all the photos taken from old people. We have photos from the 40s and before, and everyone was producing these photos from the families. And not only that, but we also collected stories from all people, and we tried to have all these as a resource for our education to continue with the children. At the end, again, as I mentioned before, we tried to put education, psychosocial support, and the identity of us as a Palestinian in one plate being provided, and not feeling that this heritage is something is only for some type of people, and trying to engage the people. And what do we do? What kind of environment do we have? How do we celebrate this environment? How do we respect that environment? How do I become part of this environment? So it was so much open. Every door opens another 10 doors for education of children, and they were really like sponge. I always say that whatever you open, you just need to light a candle inside their hearts, and they know what to do, and they know where to go, and they will jump every obstacle that they will have in their way. I am very positive about this. But again,
Amazing.
Please do more for the people. Do more for the people.
Yes, absolutely. I think your message is super clear. And thank you so much for sharing about the amazing work and the amazing approaches that you have wanted to take. And maybe people can focus a little bit more about cultural sovereignty and, taking back sovereignty over our education and choosing what we teach our children so that we can maintain a level of pride in our heritage and in our culture, which is probably, one of the things that as we internationalize our curriculums is potentially lost in the way. So that I can so that we can have some time for some questions. I do want to ask one last question to the panel to close this off, and then we'll go to the questions, because I can see that there are some questions out there. And my question is simple. I'm sorry, I did tell you that I was going to be a bit AWOL, but if you can, what do you believe is your one contribution to reimagining the new type of education for Palestine? What do you believe is the role that you're going to play in order for us to be able to launch or revive an educational system? And I know I said I didn't want to use system, but an educational approach that brings sovereignty back, whether it's to Palestine or whether it's to the region, because I know that we have Nayla, and Nayla is also, spearheading innovative educational tools in Lebanon. But what is the role that you're going to play, whether it's an individual or as an institution, in order for us to be able to take more control back on what we teach and how we teach? So I will start with the first person that smiles at me. So that's Riyam. I knew that was going to happen. So Riyam, please kick us off.
Yeah, this is a big question, Suha.
It is. I know. I told you I'm going to leave something till the end.
Well, I think that for AlNayzak, we will continue to push the envelope. We will continue to ask the hard questions. I think we will, with our project in Jerusalem, we will reimagine the classroom and instructional strategies on a very, this is the technical answer that I will give you, that
Yes.
we would like to reimagine what a classroom looks like and what educators really do in that classroom, what role they play, and what strategies they use to ensure that there's agency over learning. And most importantly is to humanize the learner, because I think that we need to remember that when we work with students, we are working with human beings who carry a lot of emotion, pain, happiness, hopes, and joys. And the only way to rebuild Palestine is to actually humanize our learners and really cater to their wants and needs. So AlNayzak will continue to do this. We are committed, and this is something that we hope that one day when I'm much older, I can look back and say I've had a part of this conversation. So I hope that it's a huge question. So I hope this
beautiful. I knew you were going to be able to hit it on all marks. So thank you, Nayla. Same question to you. How do you believe that you can potentially disrupt the status quo of education through your platform, through LAL, or through the platform, which is Tabshura?
As a takeout from everything that we have said, I would say believing in local power, continuing believing in local power, believing also something very important that Reem have said, it's integration. It's not like I have a psychosocial support program and then I have a sports program and then I have this. So this integration, when we build content, even if it's digital content, when we design content, put everything together. And I was answering a question yesterday and something came up to me. It's also bring back the joy of learning. Learning is about joy. It's about happiness. And when we build program, add this happiness. The happiness of discovering a concept, of solving something difficult. So I think bringing back this happiness while we build for emergency situation. Let's not forget about this level of education.
Absolutely.
And for that, I will end with this. For that, make our beneficiary our partners. Not only listen to them, but let them build with us.
Lovely. Beautiful. Beautiful. And I think, it's clear to see sometimes when we do see these ad hoc pictures from Gaza that don't report on the misery and destruction, and you see this cluster of kids sitting in a tent, smiling and laughing about how they're being taught a certain topic or, painting or whatever, we sometimes forget the joy that can come out of education and the fact that it can disrupt a very traumatic landscape and kind of push you away into this zone of maybe I can forget for a little bit, but not to denounce the horrors that are happening in Gaza or Palestine in general. Reem, yes, the same question to you. Before we go into the questions from the attendees in the webinar, what do you think, through Nawa or through your own personal capabilities, you would need to focus on as a starting point in order to reinvigorate the educational landscape in Palestine?
Thank you, Suha. I think what I dream of, what I wish, if I can make a wish for my people in Gaza, is that first this genocide stops, and once it stops, then I think the first thing to do is that at least I will give them months just to be on their own, reflecting. I'm sure everyone in Gaza have so many questions, have every possible questions without any answer. I still do the same, even if I'm outside Gaza. Again, losing the faith and losing the values is extremely important. Maybe it's not that clear to people outside Gaza, but I wish I can give them one room where they can go and cry for 6 months and having all these things inside their hearts out. And then after, when they are ready, I will ask them to go out. And then from there, we'll be able to do or to build or to do any work plan or everything else that would be possible. Maybe if I can drop, I can't drop this. I cannot see people, the whole world, this genocide stops and immediately I go to education or health or any other part of the destruction of Gaza. It doesn't make sense. People have so many questions. People have so many unanswered questions, and these, you cannot go on without answering these questions. What happened to us? I am as an educator, one of the major questions. What is the Palestinian children that I want to raise now? If I'm thinking of education as a vehicle, where am I going to drive home to? What is it? Now, after this, the whole world is watching and not doing anything for this genocide in the 21st century. We're talking about starvation in the 21st century. There's a huge gap between every single word and between what is happening on the ground. And then I think there will be a decision whether are we part of this world or are we not? Because this, again, these are big questions in the head of Gaza people now. And I think once these would take so much time. And I think I'm going to have this as much time as possible with the people. And later, every initiative is important. Every little and big initiative is important. Even for individuals outside Gaza, they can do work with 1 or 2 children via online and help them in learning anything. It could be English language, it could be Arabic, it could be math, it could be life skills, whatever. Everyone can do something to Gaza. And this will be definitely, they will decrease the burdens over the parents in Gaza. Later, I will definitely give more space for non-formal education. Also for the online education, or let me put it this way, the 21st century skills where maybe people can go and empower themselves economically before moving on. It's saying, I heard that my friends in Gaza are laughing because now they will say there is no electricity in Gaza, and also there is no water in Gaza, and we don't have everything. It's very true. But again, I'm allowing myself to dream of ending this genocide. And once it's there and once we are ready to move on, I think there will be enough space for all similar educational interventions.
Inshallah, inshallah. What can I say, ladies? You have been phenomenal. I will stop asking questions here and thank you graciously for your time, your energy, your honesty, and your courage, really, to kind of think beyond what we're witnessing. I want to kind of go back to Lama and ask if we have time. We've got 15 minutes, so we might be able to ask maybe 2 or 3 questions. How would you like to manage it?
How about you choose a couple of questions that haven't been covered? There's one about liberation that I really like.
I bet. Yeah, I'm not surprised you would like that one.
I like this.
Yeah, funny who the question comes from as well. So I can ask that question out loud, but I can't find it. I did read it, unless somebody has answered it. Well, Nyla's been answering questions. Oh, sure, there we go. So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, not only ladies. Oh no, sorry, Bashar. I meant ladies, i.e. the panel, not the attendees. But ahla wa sahla. So Sarah has a question. Well, her question is, what type of education is needed to produce a generation capable of liberating Palestine? How could we reset the compass from survival education to emancipatory education? Gosh, that's a big word. And you know my rule, the first person that smiles at me is the person that answers the question. So Nayla, you're smiling a lot. So please feel free to kind of, kind of what's your view? What do we need to do to produce a generation that, is capable of liberation, whether it's Palestine or beyond, inshallah? What would be your thoughts?
I already answered. So I said autonomous thinking. let us build a program that transform our children in autonomous thinkers. And do not compromise on the quality. If we need to give less, it doesn't mean we have to compromise on quality. We can be focusing on the needed skills. And I think an education that focuses on, from one hand, skills, and the other hand, in fact, I need three hands, because I need skills. I need also an education that is culturally relevant, and an education that focus on analytical thinking, on critical thinking, and making the children compare, deduce, and come up with their own opinion, and allow them to give their own opinion. One of the limitations of digital that we try to compensate by giving options is that usually you have one answer. And there are no one answer in the world we're living in. There are multiple answers. So we came up with a way of giving options. And I think this is also important, showing the children that there are many different solutions to a problem. And one right, but we have several things that are right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Reem or Riyam, would you also like to kind of add your input into this, or I can move on to the next question? So go for it.
Coming from a local experience, I've thought about this question a lot. Actually, I think every day we have thought of this question, and every time I thought that we focus more on that's what we do. We focus more on how improving the programs or improving the curricula or improving the buildings, etc. But for me, I see it from the other corner. I think let's focus on human being. And I think the secret, when I say that, let's focus on self-confidence among people. From my own experience, coming from a very small town and coming from a very poor area, once the normal and clean opportunities we were giving for them to be able to provide something to support their own community, things have totally changed. They started flourishing at every part of this. And the means, and every time I ask myself, what is it that made them do this? It's their self-confidence. And again, if we started a program where we build the humans who trust what they know and who are proud of what they have, even if it was 1 or 10, whatever, it's there in their hands, with their local heritage, with their local identity, to be proud and to be able to defend it, not to feel vulnerable in front of any other cultures or in front of any other people who would call themselves civilized. I show respect, mutual respect for you, and you should show respect for what I have also. And this is where we start. When we feel we are equal, not feeling a victim or someone who responds to someone else's work plan who thought that it could be good for us. Let's stop this. I mean, this is a unique opportunity. What is happening? Let's start to say, this is enough. Let's think of, and this is what I'm again asking people in Gaza, people in the West Bank, everywhere. You have to stop and think, what is it that you need? If it was A, then it's A. What you need is A. Just focus on it. Don't try to be overwhelmed with everyone's other program who think that this is perfect because it's perfect for them. So I think the starting is self-confidence, and people will be able to drive their own life after.
Amazing. Riyam?
I think that we need to have the courage to fight back against the stereotypes and the narratives that are dictated by the West. I think we need to decolonize our curricula. And I think we need to not be afraid to tell the Palestinian narrative the way it is, because I think that what we will face, unfortunately, is after the genocide is over, and what we're already seeing calls for is there's, the curriculum incites violence, the curriculum incites this act of terrorism, as if everything started on October 7th, and the 70 plus years before that is it didn't play a part in the fact that Gaza has been under siege for decades, almost, this has not really dictated the kind of life these children have lived. The fact that young men and women count their age in wars in Gaza rather than years is not something that would inform their identity and would not really affect how they learn and how they see the world. So I think after this, we cannot allow the conversation to be limited and trivialized to a lesson that might have been anti-Semitic, because let's be very clear, we're not anti-Semitic, we're anti-occupation. It's as simple as that. We're not anti-Jewish, we are truly against the oppression of our own people. And the fact that this is, the only place in the world where a military occupation actually exists. So I think that we need to have that courage to say, here's our story. This is how we're going to tell it. This is the culture we belong to. And we're going to say it. And we're not going to, and I think it sounds very simple. And I know that it's going to be a long struggle. And I understand the role that international donors will play in rebuilding and funding and all of that. But I think we need to start to have this conversation at a level. I don't know which level, but we need to start saying, there are things we need to teach. Because let me be very clear, nothing incites more violence than having your family killed. Nothing. No lesson, no poem, no picture, nothing. When you have lived the loss of your entire family and the annihilation. So I think that Palestinians owe it to themselves to say enough is enough, and let's really talk. Because on the other side, we see a curriculum that is anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, and we already hear the narrative that's coming out of the Israeli side, and the fact that it's almost a piece of cake to prove a genocidal attempt in a court of law. So I think that's where we need to have this conversation. This is a very difficult conversation to have. It's not easy because there will always be there's always going to be that question: is it really anti-Semitic? Has Palestinians been raised against violence, to be violent? No, they have not. They've been occupied. And when you're a 12-year-old and you lose your entire family, there's a lot that can happen out there. But I think that Palestinians have always been able to come out on the other side of the conflict with hope, with education, with production of knowledge. And we need to celebrate those examples and kind of focus on those, focus on Mahmoud Darwish, focus on Edward Said, focus on Ismail Shammout as an artist, Salman Mansour, and all of these people who've come out of the other side of this pain with the production of unique knowledge. And kind of that's the way to be liberated, is to just stop having the West tell you that this is right and this is wrong.
Yes. Amen to that. Very much agree on all points, and will refrain from adding my own points because I can see what the time is. I know we have 5 minutes left. I don't think I have time to ask another question, but for anybody that has asked questions, we will work in responding to your questions, especially on psychosocial support and the value of vocational training and how we can keep educated people in Palestine instead of having them leave Palestine. So on that note, Nayla, Riyam, Reem, thank you very much for your participation. It's been a thrilling conversation. I feel a little bit sad that we're not going to be having these conversations to prepare for this, but I'm sure that we can call you back in for another webinar. It's been brilliant. And I will pass it back to Lema for some closing comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Suha, especially to you, because I know how challenging it was to manage this panel and also with your voice. So I'm really, and I really appreciate it. And also for our speakers, because building up to this day, we had to have many difficult conversations, and it's always difficult. And it's always, you ask yourself, what is real and what is impactful in this time. So thank you so much for your courage again to have this conversation. And I really, really hope that next time that we speak, the genocide will be over and we will be having a whole different conversation, showcasing how our solutions have already worked, that we have figured it out, and that we have disrupted the system. And most importantly, that we have controlled and owned our own solutions. So I really hope that next time we speak about the healing of our kids in Gaza, in Palestine, and in the region. I always like to use imagination as a way of healing, because you can't heal unless you imagine a different reality. And I hope that everybody goes out today with this piece that you always have to imagine and reimagine in order to build a different future than the present that we live in right now. I also hope that our audience got what they expected from this webinar, that these topics and these insightful points that our speakers have made today will help you guide your work. And just to close, I just want to emphasize that at Build Palestine, we are committed to build a community. We believe in communities, and communities, just like today, we believe that impact comes out of these conversations, impactful conversations that we have. And this is one of the reasons why I've created a community called Under the Olive Tree, تحت الزيتونة, where we plan always to have such conversations. So there are so many other discussions, intimate discussions that happen under that umbrella, under the Olive Tree, which my colleague will share the link for in the chat. In that community, we connect, we share resources, and we also collaborate for many different projects. For example, we have we're currently running an initiative called Nourishing Hope for Gaza, where we reached out to initiators on the ground in Gaza, and we asked them, okay, what are you doing now? What do you need help with? And we have received over like 120 applications from people on the ground trying to deliver food, shelters, and do educational activities in tents and create co-working spaces, which exist today in Gaza, in the least resources that they have. And we take an initiative every month. So last month, we took an initiative called Colors for Gaza, which is an educational initiative that Wissam Abu Naja is running for her community in a tent in Gaza. And we successfully raised $5,000 to support Wissam's initiative and for her to be able to continue providing this support. We organize and mobilize under the olive tree, literally. So I invite you to join us there. And Nourishing for Hope, Nourishing Hope for Gaza is not just about money, it's literally about hope. And I didn't realize the full meaning until I engaged with the ones on the ground. Just the feeling, like sometimes they tell you we don't need money, we just need recognition. We need the feeling that people see us and that they recognize that we're trying despite everything. So this is just a feeling I'm sensing from the ground that I wanted to share with all of you. So again, thank you, the audience. Thank you for all our speakers. You will receive an email and with the recording and all the resources that were mentioned today and many other initiatives that are running today that needs your support. I urge everybody to keep praying for Gaza, to keep advocating for Palestine, and to keep your hope alive. Tamam? Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
Thank you. Allah ma'akum. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.